All right. Well, welcome to the Band of Brother podcast. I'm here today with the good old friend Nate Grisier. How you doing, Nate?
Pretty good, pretty good. How are you?
I'm good, dude. Did I pronounce your last name right?
No, you didn't.
I did.
It's Grisier is the way you pronounce it.
Grisier.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
No,
It's
it's all
been a while.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Been a while. Well, thanks for coming on, dude. We really appreciate you. Excuse me, Bill and willing to share your story with everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's start at the beginning. Like, how old were you the first time you used any mind altering substance?
So the first time that I used any mind altering substance, I was 8 years old. So um and uh yeah, I was eight, and I remember the day. I grew up in Southern California, kind of outside of Los Angeles, and in the 90s, skateboarding was really big, and I had a lot of friends in the neighborhood I used to skateboard with. And I remember I went over to one of my friend's house, and I knocked on his door, and one of the neighbor kids was with me, and my friend didn't answer, and he said, "Hey, do you want to go smoke some weed?" And at that time, I said no, because I remember in school we had the DARE program, and they
Mm-hmm.
were teaching us to just say no. And they were teaching us all these techniques, like how people are going to try to persuade you, and people are going to try to get you to say it. So I remember I had my fist clenched, and I was like, no. And I was waiting for something to happen, and all he said was, "Oh, okay, no big deal." And he took off, and I said, "Wait a second, no, I want to go. I do want to go." And we went down to the park and smoked weed. Um, I don't remember any sort of like euphoric feeling. Like I don't remember, like, I've heard people describe the first time that they, had any sort of mind altering substance. I've heard it described as like the sunshine shining in their stomach, or different things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember any of that, and partly because I was so young. But one thing that I do remember is, for the first time, I mean, I was only on this earth for 8 years, but for the first time, I felt I felt accepted. I felt like I had fit in. Um, I felt like I was a part of, I guess. And it's weird to say, because I think at like a young age like that, for whatever, as early as I can remember, I just always had this feeling that I was like this square peg trying to fit into a round hole, and I just didn't really fit in. And so um that was it. And it wasn't like an immediate habitual thing. It wasn't, I mean, I didn't have money, I didn't have anything, but I had crossed that line. And so if the opportunity presented itself later on in life, I'd already done that. And so it was easier for me to kind of say yes, because I'd
Mm-hmm.
already kind of done that. Um,
So where did you go from there? When did you start kind of using regularly?
Probably in middle school, I would say. It was kind of when I had more friends kind of doing it, and I was able to find people who had it more, and things like that. Um, yeah, and it just kind of progressed. I mean, I always had valued um so yeah, when I was younger, my family we grew up pretty wealthy. When I was a kid, we had a family home business growing up. And when I was a kid, our family home business actually went out of business. And my family went from being really wealthy and having a lot of money to starting to lose a lot of their assets, and starting to kind of go through bankruptcy and things like that. And so at a young age, I always put a very high value on money, and I thought that money would make me happy. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I would combine that with, um, you know, how I like to use drugs and party and stuff like that, like I discovered, at a young age, learning how to sell drugs, and I really liked it. And And so when I was young and I was in high school, I would show up and I'd have like an Altoid can filled with weed, and my friends would give me $20 and I'd open up the Altoid can and they would buy it. And then it gave me the opportunity to be able to get high for free and make money
Right.
and be able to continue my snowball kind of thing. And
So tell me, back up quick. The first time you used, what did it feel like? Like
the
what?
first time that I used,
Yeah, like what was the
I mean,
physical and the mental? What was it like?
like I said, I don't really remember like the feeling of being high when I first used, but I knew that I liked to skateboard, and I knew that it made that I felt like it made that more fun for me. I used to like to like go off, jump, ollie over stairs and do that kind of stuff, and it just made it more enjoyable,
Hmm.
and um I kind of maybe associated it with happiness. It also gave me a reason to kind of maybe fit in with other people. I felt like it gave me a opportunity to kind of be a part of, in my mind, and it was, it shortly, I think, at some point, and I don't know when, but at some point it shifted from being something that I like to a
Hmm.
solution that I could deal with anything with, and it didn't matter what was going on in my life. Like I mentioned, my family was going through financial troubles and we had things at home. I mean, none of that really mattered to me as long as I, you know, had that kind of ability to get high and continue to hang out with my friends and live that life. So
What feelings do you feel like it was? Was it medicating anything? Did you when you grew up, did you suffer from depression or anxiety or anything? I mean, not maybe diagnosable, but did you have
yeah,
those feelings?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I experienced like depression. I did, yeah, maybe have some like experience loneliness, but I mostly just, it was this feeling of like, I always felt like I was different for some reason. Like I
Hmm.
always felt like there was me and other people, even
Hmm.
at a young age, like even just like like a kid, I remember feeling like that. Like I would, go to school and there was them and there was me. It's kind of how I felt.
Yeah.
And so when I did that and I got high for the first time, it all of a sudden didn't make me feel like it was me and other people. It made me feel like I was part of the group kind of thing. So
Right.
that's kind of what I associated that with. So
Okay. So how does that progress then through your high school?
um it I pretty much I mean my through high school, it was like by the time I entered high school, I mean I felt like my life kind of like I didn't care about school. I didn't care about grades. I didn't care. I tried doing sports. I didn't really care about any of that. All I really cared about for me was the party,
Mhm.
and the friends. And I went through a lot of, consequences during high school because of that, and I went to six different high schools. And I had to do this program down in I, at some point my family migrated from Southern California or to Southern Utah to St. George during that
Mhm.
period. And so I went to this program called Reach at the Southwest Center down in St. George, and it was basically like a inpatient, or no, basically like a all day program for youth, basically.
Okay.
I've gotten kicked out of high school, and then I went to alternative school, got kicked out of the alternative school.
Why were you getting kicked out? What was going on?
Um, when I was in high school, um, we I had like missed school with some friends to go smoke weed, and uh someone had, when we were out, like some event had happened, like someone shot a stop sign with a BB gun. One of the neighbors had or someone driving by basically had written down the license plate, and so I got a call from a police officer. They were at my house, and I went home, and they found weed they searched my car, and they found weed in my car, and I think I was like 15 at that time.
Okay.
So then I went to juvenile hall, and then got put into one of these programs. And I just had a lot of different things happen. I mean, that's just one example, but I just kept suffering consequences from poor choices that I was making
Yeah.
through that, you know.
So you finally get through high school at some point?
Yeah, so um I had turned 18, and I had to go to court because I was on probation or something, and when you turn 18 they can kind of cut you loose for the most part. And they unbeknownst to me, I found out later, but my grandparents had wrote a letter to the judge, because I lived with my grandparents at the age of 14. So I basically moved out of my house with my parents and moved in with my grandparents when I was like 14. And
How come?
basically um they had wrote a letter to the judge basically saying they didn't think I was doing good, and they didn't think it was a good idea. I was very upset. I understand today, but at the time I felt like, what the hell are you guys doing? I'm 18 now, you know. Um and so the judge basically sentenced me to 30 days in jail, and so I had to go do that. And then I had one of my
Your
friends
grandparents did that or your parents?
wrote the letter to the judge.
Yeah.
Well, my grandparents did. Yeah. Yeah.
That probably pissed you off a little.
It did, you know. Yeah, it did. But now it's like I get it. You know, I understand today, and I'm actually, I think it's a good. I think it was a good thing. You know, you don't want
Yeah.
to enable. You don't if you don't want to get into that pattern of enabling and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah, I understand. Um,
So how does that progress through there? You'd get out of the legal stuff at some point?
get out of the legal stuff, yeah. And I remember I have a friend of mine that I've met in kindergarten actually, and he when I was in jail, I called him. I was in jail in southern Utah, and I called him. He lived in Southern California where I grew up, and he said he talked to his family, and he said I can move in with them when I get out of jail, because my parents didn't want me to live with them, and my grandparents kind of, I don't think, did either. And and so I said great, and I got out of jail, and I moved down there, and I found out that he had gotten kicked out of his house, and he was living in his truck. And so me and him were kind of living in his truck for a little while, and then we both got to move back into his house with his parents. And it was a good, it was really good. They kind of old family friends that we've known for a long time, still have a relationship with them today. But they took me on they showed me love, I felt like, and they took me on like their family vacations, and got to go on like a cruise with them, and stuff. But and I was still, I wasn't by any means sober or anything like that, but
Mhm.
it wasn't out of control either, I felt like,
Gotcha.
and yeah, and was living with them for a little while. And then um at some point I moved out and got my own apartment, eh, and got into we were doing like mortgages in Southern California. So like refinance loans and purchase loans and things like that. And I started making money, and I decided, that I was going to, well, actually, when I was doing that, well, you know, one day I got this huge check for like this loan that I did, and it was like, it was a lot of money, like 30 grand. For me, it was a lot of money.
Wow.
And I decided that I'm going to get my own, I got my own apartment, and I bought a bunch of weed, and I was like, I'm just going to sell weed from now on, because this sounds like a really good, better career for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I did that, and then literally within like 3 months, I had gotten evicted from this apartment, not for not paying rent, but just because it was basically a party house, and um there's people all over, and so the apartment complex was like, you gotta go. And so I had nowhere to go. I remember sitting on the curb, and my mom said I could move in with her in southern Utah, and I was, I think, 19 at the time, or 18, something along those lines. But the rule was, I had to do an outpatient program, when I did that. So I moved in with her in for about, I think it was like 6 months, and did this outpatient program down in St. George.
Okay.
I think the guy I did it with still around. Um, what's his name?
Russ Talbot.
Russ Talbot. Yep, exactly. Right on Tabernacle.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah. He is.
But yeah, I mean, did that outpatient for a little while, and then I don't even know. I don't exactly even remember what happened, but it didn't work out, or I didn't complete it for, I don't know exactly the situation, but I didn't end up finishing it, and moved out on my own. Brought one of my really good friends up from Southern California, and me and him, decided to continue selling drugs for me, because it was easy for me, I guess. At the time, it wasn't
Right.
difficult. It was something that I knew very well, and gave me the opportunity to kind of continue that lifestyle that I like to live for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it progressed. I mean, everything kind of, it progressed, and it's like no longer about weed. We're getting into, hard other things too, and cocaine and mushroom, just all sorts of anything that LSD, and just other things, and stuff like that. And nothing was off limits. And that went on for, gosh, probably 4 years, 3 or 4 years of just kind of living that lifestyle. And you know after a while, it becomes very dark, it becomes very lonely. I become a very unhappy person to be around. um I was having a lot of like, I felt having a lot of like chaos kind of going on in between my ears. And yeah, things just, I felt like, weren't going right, I guess. And um me and I got raided in 2008. It was in August of 2008, and I'd gotten raided. There was a drug task force that had raided my apartment with my friend. We had gotten back from a bar, I remember, and there was these cops outside, and unbeknownst to me, they had been watching our place all day, and they handcuffed us, and I got raided, and went to jail. And I remember I got out of jail, and that was like the very first time when I got out of jail, I think, that I had actually like promised myself that this, or made a commitment to myself, or even considered that I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this just isn't
Yeah.
fun for me. I remember the ride home from jail. I'm getting all emotional and crying, just like what's happening to me. I think I'm 21 years old, or 20 years old at the time, and I'm already facing like multiple felonies, and don't really know what to do. And I was sitting at home, and this movie popped up called, it was on like HBO or something at the time, and It was called Rising Sun, and it was the story of Christian Hosoi, who was a professional skateboarder in the 90s, almost as big as like Tony Hawk, who got arrested in Hawaii with like pounds of meth and basically found God, like basically turned his life around and became I mean, I'd been to treatment before, but just I don't know. And there was this scene in this movie where his dad like had snuck a camera in, and he'd been in there for like a year and a half, and he's like smiling, and they're like, what kind of man smiles behind bars? And he says, men that are free. And
Wow.
it was just very powerful for me watching that. Like, it was just like, it was the first time I'd even considered like truly considered like maybe I could maybe being sober, you know. And I didn't really, as much as I'd been to treatment and as much as I'd been to, I really didn't know what I was doing, you know. And so I had kind of decided I was done, and I moved into student housing at uh, Dixie, enrolled in college, and decided, you know, I wanted to try that out. And I lasted about 6 months, I think, maybe even less than that. And you know, something switched in my mind to where I didn't want to do this anymore, and I kind of
Mhm.
wanted to go back to what I was doing before. And oh, and then so another important thing was when I had gotten rated, uh, I got on what's called a plea of abeyance because they found out that they didn't get the search warrant until about 5 minutes after they had entered my apartment. And
Oh,
so yeah, and so I caught a lucky break basically. But with the plea of abeyance, they said, you know, we're not going to drug test you. You're not on probation, but you just can't get in trouble for 1 year, and all these felony charges that you're facing will get dropped down to misdemeanors. And I thought that's great. So that was kind of
wow.
part of my motivation as well. And I lasted you know, a few months doing the student housing thing, and basically just said I'm done. You know, like this isn't for me. I need to go back to what I'm doing and get back to that lifestyle. And continued, you know, to use every day and smoke weed and party. Only this time it was just to like a whole nother like a whole nother level kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, and then 364 days after I got rated the first time, I found myself getting this rated again this time. And this time it was more severe. I had this we had this big house we were living in on top of this hill in Middleton and St. George, in between Washington and St. George. And I remember seeing this whole trail of cop lights coming up the hill, and I was like, oh, someone's getting raided. And it was the house that I was me. And you know, this time it was just, yeah, more progressive. There were guns, and there were I'd gotten into heroin, and there were syringes, and there was, you know, it's just way everything was just way more severe.
Right.
And I went to jail, and was in jail for about 60 days and got out. And I'll call it my, you know, I had to do this when working the steps with a sponsor. I had to do this thing called the crash. I think it's called the crash of 29, and kind of talking about, you know, what has happened is when I got out of jail this time, I hit this point of incomprehensible demoralization where
Mhm.
I just felt completely defeated and didn't know what to do. So instead of trying to make this decision that I was done using, it was like I'm just gonna pedal to the metal. Like, let's see how far I can take this thing, because I'm just done. Like, whatever happens, happens kind of thing. It wasn't like, it was kind of a point of surrender, but in the opposite direction, you know. It was
Right.
like
Right.
it was just,
Surrendering time. I'm just going to be a druggie and a dealer the rest of my life.
this is it. Yeah, this is all I got, you know. Like,
Yeah.
I've tried it. I've tried this before. I don't know what I'm doing. I keep failing. And so let's go ahead and, you know, do this. And it was a rough period after that. I mean, I found myself panhandling in Las Vegas at gas stations. I found myself, you know, committing crimes and home invasions and stealing and robbing and just this thing that I'd never really done before. But it was just like at that point where I just didn't care. I just didn't know. It was just this, I don't know, this mindset of just like, I do not care what happens to me. This is
Right.
what I'm doing. So, and then, I hadn't talked to my mom. There was a period, I hadn't talked to my mom in a long time, and I got a call from her. It had probably been about a year and a half or something since I talked to I felt like since I talked to my mom, and she called me up, and I think she wanted to take me to buy some food or something, and I thought, well, maybe I can get some money out of this conversation, so let's go ahead and do this, and she picked me up, and she bought me some food, and I just remember being in the parking lot with her, and she just asked if there was anything she could do to help, because I think she noticed something different with me. I
Yeah.
wasn't the same person. There was something dead inside of me.
Yeah.
And I remember just breaking down in her car and just getting really emotional and just saying, I don't know. I feel like my life's over right now. I don't know what to do. And I was an everyday heroin addict, cocaine addict, IV user, and just didn't know, just living that lifestyle. And my mom, had never, she'd never experienced anyone who'd gone through that before. Besides me, I don't think. And so
Right.
I think it was kind of a shock to her as well. But
So do you have any other older brothers, sisters?
I'm the oldest, and I have 3 younger sisters.
Okay. So you were the oldest and everyone was still kind of in high school and
Yeah, yeah.
gotcha.
I have one sister, and I can get into later about that. But I have one sister who's 18 months younger than me,
Okay.
and she passed away in 2019.
Oh,
And then I have 2 other younger sisters who are about 8 and 10 years younger than me. So
okay.
yeah. And what happened? And then one thing led to another, and I found myself at the ranch talking to sheikhs as I'm nodding off in the office, asking me if I'd be interested in going to treatment. And that's one of the running jokes we have is when I see him, because he asked me when the last time I used was, and I told him the day before, and I like nodded off in his office like right after I said that.
Maybe you used that day possibly within the hour.
Yeah. I was like, he's like, when did you use last? And I was like, yesterday. And I just like nodded off in the office. But found myself into detox, and got into the treatment center. I didn't really know what to expect. I kind of I was pretty hopeless at that time, and
So what are you like 21,
23. I was 23 at the
23?
time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, like I didn't really know what to do. Like I remember my sister picked me up at this crazy house, this like dope house I was living at, and she's getting ready to take me to she's ready to take me so we can go up to Salt Lake, and I'm in southern Utah. And I'm like hugging all my friends there, and I'm like, I'll see you guys in 60 days. Like I just didn't know how it was all gonna work, and yeah, went to detox, and then came into the ranch. And that was in 2010. That was in March of 2010 when I went through there.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about your experience with the brothers in there, with the other guys that were in house with you.
Yeah. Um, the ranch, the ranch, it was, as I mentioned earlier, for a long time, I kind of felt like I was the only one who thought the way that I thought and who acted the way that I acted. And it was so powerful to be able to be in the ranch and meet other people who thought the same way that I thought, who had done some of the same
Right.
things that I did. And it just had a lot of the same experiences that I had experienced. I kind of felt like I was the only person like that for a while, but being able to be surrounded by other men who had kind of gone through very similar experiences and made it out on the other side, and who are now, like the alumni who are now sober and kind of doing that. And it was cool, man, just being able to meet friends and make connections with people, and kind of go through that whole process. And it was like, sure,
What was your first step like?
my first step,
Yeah.
it was I think we were talking about that last
Yeah.
week at dinner maybe, but
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
so I remember when they were doing the first step, I really didn't know what to expect too much, but I remember, writing, and what it is, just kind of writing out your history and your past, and understanding the powerlessness and the unmanageability of the disease and so forth. But I remember going through that, and I was waiting in the kitchen, because if you haven't done one at that time, only people who had done them could go in the room. And this guy had gotten kicked out like right before me, I don't know, I don't really know the situation, but he stormed out and he was gone. He's like, I'm not doing this, or something like that. And I remember being like, wow, this is crazy. But I also remember saying, I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to say the truth on this. And, whatever happens, I'm just going to tell the truth. So it's like, if they want, this is what's going to happen, it's going to happen. And went in there, and I don't even know. I feel like I blacked out. I don't even know what happened, but it was just like, I just remember getting super, super emotional, and just having all the guys kind of go around and tell me how much they cared for me and how much they loved me, and giving me hugs and things like that. It was just very, very cool experience.
Yeah.
And getting that feeling of just like, wow, I feel a part of, was really good for me, for sure, for sure. And
Yeah.
you learn so much in there. Like, I don't really, I talk about, it's like, I don't really remember a lot of the, like a lot of the groups and a lot of things like that now, because that was 2010, so it's been 14 years now. But I do remember just, this concept of like blind faith, and this concept of willingness, and just being able to, I don't know why, I don't know why we can't have sugar. I don't know why we have to follow all these weird rules, but I'm willing to just trust this process, and I'm going to follow them and just see kind of what happens. And for me, that was a very powerful layer. It's a very powerful concept to understand. I felt like in early sobriety, because that carries over into life. And I can't tell you how many times I've been asked to do something through a sponsor or friends or mentors, and I'm like, I don't understand, and I don't really see it your point of view, but I trust you and I love you, and I'm willing to take that step.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
cool. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Willingness, right?
yeah, willingness. I mean, that's the bot. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing in coming. So many people, and I get it, because you're like, this is so different from the lifestyle I'm living. Why do I have to change my life? Like, nothing you're doing is, makes no sense to me. But getting to that point of willingness, and being able to be like, I don't understand why we're doing this, but I'm willing to try it, because what I'm doing is not working, is very very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Without using names, what was a funny story that happened to you in
A funny
treatment?
story.
Yeah.
Um, without using names,
Yeah. Probably.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I remember one. I mean, I can't think of any names in particular, but I remember that they were making like French dips one time, and I like spilt all this au jus all over myself, and had to go into the group room, because everything's can't be late, and so I just showed up to this group room with like all this French dip au jus stuff all over me. I thought it was kind of funny, but
You went through with some pretty cool guys.
yeah.
What once you got out of res, what did you do?
When I got out of res, you know, Because yeah, just like I mentioned, I didn't know what to expect. I had no plans of doing anything when I got there besides just doing the 60 days and then going back to doing what I was doing. But meeting everyone, I just became, willing, and I just turned it over. And I remember she's like, "Well, what are you going to do when you get out of here?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you suggest? What do you think I should do?" And Chris was like, "I think you should do sober living." And I was like, "All right, let's do it." So I went and did the sober living and the aftercare program. And
Okay, sorry.
okay, and we're back. But yeah, a lot of the relationships that I met during all that are lifelong friends, guys that I still think highly of and stay connected with, and things like that. But
I think I've told people before that if you go through treatment and you didn't make friends like that, you miss the point of treatment, the
yeah,
connection with people. I mean, yeah, the stuff you're learning and the steps are important, obviously, and CBT or DBT or EMDR, whatever experiential, it's all important. But
yeah,
the lasting thing, the thing that lasts actually eternally, are relationships that we
yeah,
can, and the connections that we make because at least for me, when I was using, I couldn't connect in a real way with people. I would connect in bars and at parties and in drug houses, and there would be that druggy camaraderie.
yeah.
But it wasn't real. It was
Right.
all counterfeit and superficial. And to really
All
connect
facade.
emotionally with people and men, especially,
Yeah. It-
is the key to it, in my opinion. That's the stuff that lasts forever.
yeah. And having like true friends, real friends that aren't afraid to, call you out or aren't afraid to kind of tell you the truth on what they're thinking, or hey man, you're making a bad choice. I think most of my life I had surrounded myself by, just like you mentioned, like these friends that, at the end, and they were yes men, I felt like, and it was just like they were just hanging around just to hang around, but it was just like, I it wasn't like anyone was there. And it's like the friends I have today aren't afraid to call me out and on my stuff, and afraid to tell me, tell me how they think, and I appreciate that. That's
Yeah.
it's a good friendships. So
Yeah. It's honesty. So what's it like now, buddy? What's your
yeah.
journey been like since aftercare and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I can continue there's still quite a bit of the story left. I can continue if you want me to, or
Whatever you want. Yeah. It sounds great.
yeah. So yeah, I got out, I did sober living, I graduated from the ranch, and um got in with a good group of guys, ended up working at the ranch. I think I was like 18 months sober or something, and I was working there as well. Got into school, started working at a job at a bank downtown, and my life was going, really, really good, I think. And ended up getting 3.5 years. And at 3.5 years of sobriety, I I went back out. I had relapsed. I um, did heroin after 3.5 years. Just went straight to it. Didn't skip around. I remember that day. Um, I remember waking up the next day and being like, "What just happened?" Like, I really relapse? But also this feeling of like, "Oh, nothing's happened." Like no one knew, and it was just kind of
So
my
let's back up to the relapse. Like,
yeah,
what do you think? I'm sure you've looked at it and like when did it kind of start? Because it just doesn't start the day you use. It starts
yeah, yeah.
months before.
Yeah, it's kind of right. It's a symptom, right? And so there was stuff going on, and I really don't know. I know that like there was a point of my sobriety where I had this feeling of like I got this, and I got this feeling of like, meh, maybe I should focus more on work, and I should focus more on school, and I was really, spreading myself out thin between everything that I was doing.
Mhm.
you know, between school and working 2 jobs, and then, you know, and everything else was just kind of on the back end, you know, and I was just so focused, I felt like, on myself and getting ahead in life, and just didn't really feel like I needed to continue to be as active maybe in recovery as I was.
Mhm. So
Um,
meeting attendance probably went down?
oh yeah, yeah, meeting attendance kind of went down, and you know, just yeah, everything in general, you know, and all I really cared about was work and school, and making money, and things like that, you know. And I found myself in a situation, you know, I mean, the big book says, you know, we are without defense against the first drink. And I found myself in a situation where, you know, I was 3.5 years sober, and I'm on my way to the pharmacy to pick up syringes to, you know, shoot up heroin. And it's like, not even thinking about it, not even, you know, it's just like, it just making that decision and going straight to it, you know.
You had
And
to, how did you remember? How did you talk yourself into it? You had to, there had to have been
so I was
some
hanging out with,
rationalizations. I
yeah,
mean,
well, I was hanging out with a girl, and somehow we got on the discussion with this girl about heroin. Like, I told her I had been sober for X, and we just started talking about it, and she'd never done it. And I was like kind of trying to sell her on the idea of doing it or something like that. And it was just like, I was like, oh, you should try it. And I remember, yeah, just like driving to the pharmacy. And in my mind, in my mind, I could have taken a lie detector test, but it was like, I'm not, like, I truly believed I wasn't going to do it. Like, I was just doing this for her, you know, kind of thing.
you were just going to guide her through the
I was going
experience.
to guide her through it. It's just crazy, you know. And so, um, yeah, I had relapse, you know, and I did it, and nothing happened the next day. Like, I think in my mind, I thought that like my whole world was going to fall apart instantly in one night, and nothing happened. It was kind of my secret. And but like, you know, like I've learned is, you know, I have the disease of alcoholism, and once I enter any sort of mind altering substance into my body, you know, I can't stop until it's done. And I continued on that path and continued to do it for a while, you know. And working at the bank, I'm going to school, and I always, you know, I had all these rules, you know, I had all these rules with myself. Like, I was never going to do it on days that I had to work, and I was never going to do it on days that I had school, you know. And I kept passing that threshold, and I kept breaking those rules, and then I would just keep lowering the bar. Well, okay, I'm not going to show up to school high, or I'm not going to show up to work high. And then it was like, okay, I'm not going to do it at work, or I'm not going to do it, you know. And it was just like this thing that just kept happening. And I just found myself, you know, completely powerless, to the point where, you know, I had worked at this bank for, you know, 4 years, and I had been friends with, you know, everyone, and they saw a different side of me. And I was really good friends with my coworkers, and it got to this point where they sat me in the office and they said, "Hey man, you got to go. Like, you're telling us you're going on a 5 minute break to go to the gas station, and you're gone for an hour, you know, and
Mhm.
you're showing up late." And he's like, this isn't like you. We don't know what's going on with you, but, you know, you got to go." And you know, I got like suspended, I think, because I was in upper division business courses at the University of Utah, and I got like, they
Did
had
you go
like,
to the Eccles School of Business?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yep,
Okay.
yeah. And I had gotten like, my GPA had gone down to like a 1.8, or it had gone
Whoa.
down like super low. And so they had like, I got on like GPA suspension or something, because I was in, you know, because I would show up to school, you know, thinking I could just go get high in the bathroom and go to class, and I would just find myself in the bathroom at this school all day just getting high, you know. And you know, it just got really dark very quickly, you know. And the things that I had gained in sobriety over those 3.5 years, I started to lose very quickly, you know. And
Mhm.
um I had let the, and I think I've heard this before, but it's like, I got to this point where I let the things that God had given me, I had let them, uh, get taken away, based on my own actions,
Yeah.
you know, I, I, uh, I remember calling someone, I might have called you. I can't even remember. I called someone at the ranch and was like,
Think you did. Yeah.
yeah, was it you? Yeah. And just said, hey, I need help and I need to go to detox. And it wasn't, and it just went on this cycle. I didn't go to detox. I remember talking to we'd lined it up to go, and it was just things just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and I lost my home, and I just found myself, way worse, a new different bottom. I had learned that rock bottom had a basement, right? And I had learned that here I am now living out of my car, starting to pawn things of my house, and at this, already had been to like multiple detoxes, already had multiple appointments to get into treatment, and had missed, just stopped going to them all, and in and out of the VOA detox downtown, and
It's
you
a
know,
really nice place to stay. Yeah.
yeah.
I worked there for 2 years.
Oh, did you? Yeah,
Yeah.
my sponsor worked there as well. Yeah.
That was my first job in the business in '99.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Graveyard at the VOA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you
Nice.
got to sleep on the mats on the ground for a couple
Sleep on the
nights.
mats, get that herbal tea that they give you instead
Oh
of
yeah.
Suboxone or whatever, and go through that, and it was just this cycle where it was like, as soon as I was high, I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm going to detox. So I checked myself into detox. As soon as the withdrawals would kick in within, a few hours, I'm like, all right, I'm done. And the VOA kind of has that revolving door. I mean, they're not going to stop you. So it was just like,
Hmm.
I did that for a while. And yeah, I
So
don't,
how long was your relapse?
it was about a year and a half or 2 years of
Wow.
that. And it got really bad. It got really, really, the first time I had gotten sober, it was I was surrounded by people, I felt like, and this time it was just me by myself in my home, depressed, so scared to go outside. I didn't want anyone to see me. I didn't want, anyone in the recovery. I cared so much about what other people thought of me, and was
Hmm.
just so worried about anything. So I just stayed at home, and it
So
was a
what
really
did you do when some brothers would call you? You just
yeah, people would call me, and I would make plans. Like, I think I made plans with Russ to go to like a concert, and I wouldn't show up. It was like I would act like everything's all good, and then I would just lie, and I would basically the I was doing the definition of living a double life, I felt like, and until it all caught up with me.
yeah.
That's how I got the nickname. I got a nickname. I mean, I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was, but at the ranch, all the guys that went through when I worked there called me Quesadilla Nate, because I was getting high making quesadillas at the ranch, and forgot to put cheese in the quesadillas and just put them in the oven and then left. And I didn't know, but they had called me. I found out like years later, but I found at the time, I guess my nickname was Quesadilla Nate, because they had gotten home from church and wanted some quesadillas, and there was no cheese in them. There was just tortillas. So they're like, "What the hell is this?"
Dried out
Dried
tortillas.
out tortillas.
So what woke you up the second time?
Um, you know, I don't really even I don't really remember, but I remember waking up that day, and I had my buddy was letting me crash at his place for the weekend, because I didn't have a place to live, and I'd woke up and I was getting ready to drive down. I was up in Ogden, and I was getting ready to drive down to Salt Lake to go pawn some things out of my storage unit and whatever I had left, and I got a call from my mom saying, "Hey, I arranged for you to go to detox again. I know that this is, the 100th time that we've done this, but if you're serious, like let's do this." I think she was really worried about me also. And for what, I was like, "Okay, let's go." Like, I don't know really. I was just kind of like, I felt like it was just a conscious decision where I did that. And I went down to St. George to Therapia and yeah, went through the whole process again. And it was a very powerful experience going through it a second time, a very humbling experience. I remember having, just feeling like I had done something wrong, feeling like I had made a mistake, feeling like I was just this kind of like failure, like the success story that had everything and like lost everything because I've been sober
Shame.
for a while. Shame. Yeah, exactly. And I remember one of my first groups in there, and such a good guy. I think I can say his name. He worked there. He was the therapist, but Mike Keenan, man, he's a
Yeah.
great guy. And I remember being in there. He's like, "Nate, why are you here?" And it was like a weekend, and I was like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "I mean, you've been to a million groups, you've worked in treatment, you've been sober for a while." And he was like, "Why are you here?" And I remember just breaking down and just telling him, like, "I don't know, I just can't stop." I was like, "I don't know what's wrong with, like, I just cannot stop." And I felt like I let everyone down. And he was like, and I was like, I just don't know what to do. And for me, that was just an eye-opening experience to understand to truly understand the meaning of like this disease and what this means.
Yeah. Powerlessness, right?
Powerlessness, 100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, kind of. And that was in 2014. So a while ago, almost 10 years ago. But
So what's your new sobriety date?
10, 14, 14. So
Nice.
October, God willing, I'll have 10 years. So yeah.
Congratulations, bud.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
What role did God play in your recovery, or what role does God play in your recovery now?
Oh, God plays a huge role with me, and just this understanding, of I'm not I'm not this thing that I make up in my mind that I thought I was. Like, I felt like I was like this failure. I felt like just like we talked about, that shame, that true inner shame that I experienced, and being able to kind of understand that, that's not true, and God's been with me this whole time, and
Yeah.
today, after it, it's like I look back on that experience and that relapse, and I totally like, I'm so grateful for that experience. God needed to show me that I don't got this. God needed to show me that it doesn't matter how long you've been sober for, you're still capable of going back out, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What you've done the past, what you've done in the past does not dictate your future in regards, to this recovery thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I understood that, and he needed to teach me a lesson in going through that. And
That's awesome.
that experience that I went through, and that whole new, rock bottom, it was just such something that I had so much shame about. And today it's just one of my greatest assets. And I look back on that story, and I'm so grateful. Not a lot of people, not a lot of people can say that they've been sober for, a long period of time and had to redo it again and go through that whole process again.
Yeah.
But
There's a scripture, it says like he gives us weakness, so we'll humble ourselves and come to him, and then he turns the weakness into strengths. And I think
yeah,
that happened with you.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. What
And
do you do on a daily basis to stay sober? What's your routine?
um, I try to I try to stay consistent with having like a morning routine and getting up and making my bed and doing a
You
prayer.
make you good. All right.
Yeah. As crazy as that sounds, that was so hard to me to do for such a long period of
Yeah.
time. I didn't really see the importance of it, and see, what it meant. I
The
tried
interesting
to.
thing is, I think a lot of guys that went through the ranch thought, everything that we incorporated there, I do.
Yeah.
So I remember uh, my the day after my wedding,
Hmm.
and my wife was in the bathroom, and she came out and the bed was made, and she's like, "Hey, dude, I married you. You don't have to impress me. We're good." I'm like, "This is how I stay sober.
Yeah.
This is how I know. This is how I keep my life in order. That's one way."
Yeah.
That's cool. You do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, just try to pray. I try to journal, try to write down, what I want to do throughout the day, what I'd like to accomplish. And then, at the end of the day, just kind of see where I am, and where did I screw up? If I, need to make an amends, or say I'm sorry, or something like that. And I don't do that every single day, but I try to stay consistent with doing that. I try to make that a part of my regular process. And I found a solution, today, for my life that works. I still have that same brain in between my ears that was running the show, that ran with me, before I got sober.
Hmm.
But the difference is today, I just have a different way of doing it, and I have faith that, no matter what I go through, this design for living will help get me through it. When I
Yeah.
was five years sober in 2019, I got a phone call that my sister had passed away, and she had gotten into drugs. She was never into drugs when I was doing them, and she had gotten into them after, and she went to treatment, and she was 4 days out of treatment, and OD'd. And
Mhm.
it was very, very hard. And I remember getting that call, and being 5 years sober, I was just like, there's, you know, I don't know how to handle this. I was willing to just do anything. And I didn't care about staying sober, wasn't a priority of mine. I kind of was like, God, you take the wheel. I need to handle this right now. And what I learned in going through that experience, how powerful this the program the design for living that I built for myself really is, because they're able to help me kind of I had people calling me I had multiple people calling me every single day, during that. Hey, how are you? What can I do for you? Do you need to go to a meeting? Sending flowers to my mom, and just being able to kind of go through that experience sober, in sobriety, and not, just completely check out, and being able to actually kind of feel that and go through the grief of that is very powerful experience. So
Yeah. And I'm
yeah.
sorry to hear that, dude.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
But it is a terminal disease if we keep using,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So, what
Yeah.
would you say to someone who's listening right now that might be struggling?
If someone was I would say just don't be afraid, just reach out, just get honest. I think for me, I was so afraid to tell people what was really going on, because I put such a high value on what other people thought about me. And I put such a high value on what I thought other people would think of me if I were to tell them I'm actually struggling, or that this is what's going on. And the truth of the matter is, more people than not just care. What I've learned for me is more people than not just care about me, and care about how I'm doing. And so it's okay to get honest. It's okay to say, hey, I'm struggling, and need help, and
Yeah.
that's what I've had to do, in my times of need, is just being able to kind of get that out there and put it out into the universe, and then just kind of see, let God take in the let God take the wheel, you know what I mean? But just get that out there,
Yeah.
and then whatever happens, so
I think if you ask and you're willing to do it, he sends a lot of angels. And
yes,
most
absolutely.
of my angels, well, all the ones I'm aware of are humans. I know there's a lot on the other side. I don't
Yeah.
quite understand how it works, but I know I feel my family. I bet you feel your sister
Yeah, I
many
do.
times. And I think they're closer than we know.
Yeah.
And they're probably assigned to us at least part time, if not full time.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it takes more than just one, sometimes
Yeah.
there's many of them around,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got in where I go to church, they have ledges above the lighting inside the chapel. And you're too young to have seen City of Angels. It was a movie with Nicolas Cage,
Hmm.
and they showed angels. They were human, but they had wings, and just be sitting on the top of skyscrapers and on the top of bridges, watching people do their thing. And sometimes during sacrament, I just look up on those ledges and I try and imagine my mom and my dad and my
Mm,
cousins and my aunts and uncles and grandparents. And, I know they're there. So,
yeah,
anyway, dude, thank you so much for sharing your story, and thanks
yeah,
for taking the time and opening up like you did. And
absolutely.
Nate's just one of those dudes that's got this massive heart, and he's always, I think he goes to the alumni meeting quite a bit. If any of you need a sponsor, I'm going to offer you up without asking you to offer up your
Okay,
sponsorship.
perfect.
Um, and he's just one of the great noble ones, man. He's got a light around him, and he's just such an incredible man. And I sure love you a lot, buddy.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And yeah, if there's anyone listening, to this and they're struggling or sober or not, just don't be afraid to reach out, and don't be afraid to make a phone call. So,
Amen, buddy. Love you, dude. Thanks for coming
all
on. I
right,
appreciate it.
love you too. All right, thanks.
Take care, Nate.
All right.